program is brought to you in part by BNN, Business News Network.
With Hollywood good looks and a posh wife, David Beckham brings more to Major League Soccer than his famous kick. But does the Beckham brand mean cold hard cash for North American soccer? Robert Boland is a professor of sports business at New York University. He joins us now from the NASDAQ with his thoughts on the story. Good of you to join us, sir.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us about Beckham. Can he make North American soccer more popular?
No. In a word, no. What he's going to do, I think, most strongly for the MLS is really give it a shot in the arm in terms of a cash flow to the league. As of about a year ago, franchise values in the league were at about $10 million for a new franchise, maybe a little less than that to take over an existing franchise, and now the rumor is that they're running in the $30 million range for an expansion franchise. That could be irrational exuberance, but it's certainly a big shot in the arm cash flow-wise for a league that's a little bit strapped.
So then expand on your original point there. Why can't he do anything longer term for the league?
Well, probably a lot of it has to do with exactly where he is in his career and the way he plays the game. He's a person who sets up goals rather than scores them himself. He probably is sort of in the twilight of his career, and I don't think as a player anyone really regards him in the same, even in the same sentence as Pele. He is a world champion marketer. Not so sure he's a world champion player at this point.
But obviously, Pele came to North America, and obviously soccer's still struggling as a sports business in the American market. But given that marketing power you just spoke of, and the fact that people are just getting, at least some people are just getting to know him in the North American market, isn't there the potential that he could take this sport further than Pele did in North America?
I think that's going to be a difficult one right now, and I'll even say it to you this way. I think that there are just more competitive ideas in terms of one's sports and leisure dollar than there were at that point. I do think he is a very marketable personality. I think he is a very attractive personality, particularly when you take him in the package with his wife, Victoria. But I'm not really sure that he's going to necessarily elevate soccer to the next place in American or North American sports business. When you think about it, that's probably the NHL in that next spot, and I don't know if soccer can necessarily get there. I do, however, think that if the owners really do enjoy the benefit of the increase in franchise fees and increase in cash flow to the league, there's a good chance that the league may have greater longevity, and that may be the thing that in the long term is helpful to the league. On the other hand, taking in a player who makes $50 million in a league where the average player makes $50,000 may be a way to accelerate your demise as opposed to necessarily put it off.
And on that same point, $50 million, $250 million over 5 years. So is he specifically worth it to his team?
He isn't to his team. He is if he can attract new franchise buyers in the $30 million range for expansion franchises and up franchise values across the league from the $10 million range to even to the $20 million range. He will definitely be worth it. In that respect, he's almost like a really new coat of paint on a house that isn't selling.
You've got, obviously, people, as you mentioned, with a variety of choices out there on where they can spend their leisure money. You mentioned the NHL. Where would this money be coming from? If people aren't spending on something, then they're going to MLS games. So where are they going to get this fan base from? What are they going to be spending on here?
Well, this is probably where the MLS has to position itself very strongly. It costs about $200 American to take an American family of 4 to a baseball game now. Football tickets are in the $70 to $80 a ticket range in the NFL cities. So you're talking about a family of 4 being in the $300, $400 range. Soccer really needs to position itself as a fairly low ticket price, good fun experience sport. And I think that's the one thing that where Beckham maybe it's sort of at odds with it. If you're having to pay $50 million, it's hard to keep ticket prices under control so that families can enjoy it on a budget or in place of a movie, let's say, as opposed to another sports event.
But as far as other sports out there, would you say the NHL, is the NHL concerned about this?
The NHL has other things to be concerned about rather necessarily than this. But I think this would be the NHL is the league that soccer would be posed next to if you're trying to pick them off one at a time, it's the NHL is probably next on that rung to be picked off. They don't compete season-wise, so I don't necessarily know if that's a particular worry.
All right, let's go from the average fan to perhaps the millionaire who's got a few million lying around as an investment opportunity for these franchises. You mentioned the increase in value we've seen recently. Are these a good investment?
Well, sports investments are almost always asset plays rather than cash flow plays. And it really resides in the fact that there's always somebody else, or you hope that there's always somebody else to buy the team for more. NFL teams appreciate it around a 20% ratio and produce about 5% on investment cash flow. Baseball teams, depending on how long you're holding, similarly. What we don't have in Major League Soccer right now is, do we have any track record of where the investment goes? The good news is, though, if you're thinking about buying a sports franchise, and they're rare and they're exclusive to a degree, you're really talking about buying an MLS franchise for about the same price as you're talking about a fast food franchise play. So, yeah, it's fairly attractive from that standpoint.
Very quickly, on the endorsement front for Beckham himself, given that your expectations for the league itself longer term are still a little bit cautious, could he still cash in the same kind of way that he did when he was living in Europe?
I suspect he's going to cash in a little bit better than he would if he were living in Europe. I think if he were continuing to live in Europe, he would have to cash in based on his performance on the field, and that seems to be flagging. I don't even think people regard him as the top player from the United Kingdom anymore. I think Wayne Rooney has pretty much established that, and I don't think that he's mentioned in the same breath as Zidane or some other players. So I think the answer on him is it's a very good move to come to the United States. He is an entertainment brand. He's asking for a piece of the action in almost all his measurable advertising deals. In other words, if he can drive sales or he can create a percentage increase, he's asking for a percentage of that. That's a pretty sophisticated strategy. So I think as a marketing idea, this is a great safe haven for him. Doesn't every great athlete in their latter days want to go to play in L.A.?
Absolutely. Robert Boland, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, John.
Robert Boland from the NYU joining us from New York. Well, not long ago, many people got married in their early 20s, and parents helped organize and pay for the wedding. How times have changed. Couples are getting hitched later in life, and mom and dad always don't reach for the checkbook. CTV's Pat Foran has the story.